next. Here we go. Aloha, shifters and light guardians. Welcome to today's Paradigm Shift Central Circle discussion. The topic for today is, how does spirit communicate with us? My name is Brendon, aka Mystic Spider-Man, Skull Babylon, Wolf Shield, and yeah, happy to be able to dive into this one. This one kind of, again, coming off the themes of the previous week, where we were talking about what is death to us, but again, with this is like the much broader scope that kind of ties in with the Samhain Halloween energy of the thinning of the veil. So a very appropriate topic for us to be able to explore here for today. Just some quick introductions, and we'll go over some housekeeping, and then we'll get right into the topic. Again, the Paradigm Shift Central Circle discussions, we do these live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. EDT through the Paradigm Shift Central community, and we do them through our Discord server. So if you haven't joined our Discord server, please feel free to connect there to be able to participate on air for future Paradigm Shift Circle discussions. And of course, we broadcast them to YouTube at my YouTube channel, Skull Babylon, and also upload them onto Spotify at Paradigm Shift Radio. So be sure to subscribe wherever you would like. And yeah, happy to be able to have you here. And if you enjoy this, if it's your first time, then feel free to check out some of the past recordings. And thank you again so much, everyone, for joining in. So we'll just do a quick little regular kind of introduction in terms of some basic instructions for today's circle, and then we'll get right into the topic. So thank you, everyone, for joining today's Paradigm Shift Circle. Before we get started, here are a few guidelines and reminders. Paradigm Shift Circles are an intentional, sacred digital space created to host inspirational, conscious conversations to nurture our spirits and build a community. Circles are sometimes recorded. This one is. At the end of the circle, a screenshot will be taken to show the names of those in attendance. Please respect the instructions of the facilitators of the circle. Please respect the intention of the space. Please respect your fellow members, and you are welcome to simply listen in or to speak in the circle. To step on stage and speak in the circle, please use the hand raise button and wait to be brought on stage by a facilitator. Once on stage, please wait for the facilitator's prompt to speak. If you are already on stage and wish to speak, blink your microphone to would like to speak next. Please blink your microphone by clicking the mute and unmute button a few times and wait for the facilitator's prompt. Circles generally go up to the top of the hour, and we will conclude with gratitude at 5 minutes too. Please tell your friends and invite others who may be interested. If you have not already, please feel free to check out our Patreon membership, where you can join as a leading member in the community to be able to get access to additional private events and ongoing support and full access within our Discord servers. So thank you so much for joining, contributing, and enjoy. So for those of you on the YouTube, please continue to leave your comments as we go through this. I'll try to read some of those on air as we go. And for the start of today's circle, I'm joined by Kristen, aka Pinox, as well as Joan of Angels, who I'm very excited to be able to welcome into today's circle. So we got a lot of wisdom here. And again, for those of you who are either in the audience or either on YouTube, if you would like to be able to join in as we go through the circle, again, make sure you're connected through the Discord. And if you're already in the stage on the Discord, simply raise your hand and we will bring you up. And again, this is all just practice. So this is practicing tapping into our heart space and being able to see what we have within us when it comes to this question. You know, like, what wisdom do we already hold related to this topic? So I'll get things rolling. I'll start off first, and here's today's question: how does spirit communicate with us? Well, I think, how doesn't spirit communicate with us? It's interesting to be able to dive into this question, especially related to the themes of Samhain and again, just this whole concept of thinning of the veil, because I want to be able to have this discussion to be able to invite people to perhaps begin to bring a little bit more conscious awareness to this, to begin to start to seek how they can develop a deeper relationship between themselves and quote unquote spirit. So with this question, of course, usually with any of the topics we do here, there's always like a question within the question, like, what does it mean when we're saying, how does spirit communicate with us? What is spirit? Are we talking about loved ones who have passed on? Are we talking about, the spirit as in like a ghost, as in like sort of like, like an entity of some sort? Are we talking about spirit just in terms of, the oversoul, the bigger us, the collective consciousness? Are we talking about the spirit of nature, the spirit of the elementals? So there's a lot of ways to be able to interpret this. And that's kind of the idea, is that, we come into this reality and through the experience of being human within kind of like this mainstream culture, communication to us is primarily done mostly through our five senses. You know, we see things on TV, we hear things on the radio and on our devices, and we have communication, and you know, we can like touch things and taste things, and all of this is communication. You know, communication is the process of transferring information from one place to another. So to dive into this, you know, how does spirit communicate to us? I think it's also part of the question of why does spirit want to be able to communicate to us? So from my personal experience, and I'll just share on this and we'll pass it over to whoever would like to go next, and Kristen or Joan, if one of you would like to go next, just go ahead and blink your microphone now, and we'll know who to pass it to in a moment. So for me, when I think of this, like how does spirit communicate with us? One of the most immediate things that I think about is synchronicities and omens and things like dream. You know, dream time is nothing. There is no shortage of spirit communicating to us, and so, you know, within this process, it's again the question of, well, why is spirit communicating with us? And from my personal perspective, I love to be able to play around with the idea that, you know, oftentimes like spirit is communicating to us in some ways as like kind of like information that's outside of our perception, that's coming to us to be able to remind us that we're on the right path, or to be able to give us a premonition, to be able to help us in the decision making process that we're moving into. So like I said, there's a lot of ways to be able to explore this question, and that's kind of the idea, is that everybody here probably has their own unique way of communicating with spirit. So my unique way of communicating with spirit, which I don't think is quote unquote unique, but just, you know, a small fraction of diving into this bigger theme. I love synchronicity. Synchronicities are a way that spirit communicates to me. And again, that's kind of like the universe giving me a thumbs up, where it's like, good job team, like keep going. And that's a very common one. And again, dreams, as I said, and omens, and yeah, there's a lot of different ways, and animals and animal totems. And even, you know, one thing, I'll just say this, and I'll pass it over to either Kristen or Joan. I love the idea of being able to open my mind up to the possibility of inviting in more of this communication, specifically when it comes to the energy of like the fae, like the fairy, the elven energy, the forest spirit energy. And one of the ways that I've opened myself up to being able to receive communication with this, and this is actually a part of the topic here, is that, you know, the ways in which spirit can communicate to us is also kind of relative to the ways in which we invite in this communication. And this is oftentimes like, we can creatively say, hey universe, you know, like if there's something you want to tell me, show me XYZ. And one of the ways that I kind of did this, even with like the spirit of like fae and fairy and stuff, would be to basically be able to invite in the symbol. This, I'll try and explain this as best I can, to invite in the symbol of seeing a leaf that has 3 holes in it. And when I see those 3 holes in it, to me, that shape actually looks like a face. So it looks like a face on a leaf. And this is, again, kind of like an actual form of the spirit of like the forest. And we see these characters kind of in like Princess Mononoke, as well as in like Zelda. They have a specific name. They're like the Chikoro or something like that. And I've had that happen a few times, where I've like just kind of like been in the moment. Last time it was like me and Lacey, and we were just like sitting there in the forest, really just kind of like in that presence, even just kind of like connecting with the energy of the spirit of our child, our baby coming. And then after we kind of got up, I looked down on the ground, and lo and behold, there was like one leaf that stood out to me, and it had these like 3 holes kind of in it. But like looking at that from my perspective, it looked like a face. And it was like, oh, like that's like the spirit kind of like appearing to me through the form of a leaf, through the symbol of what I was able to kind of like process through my mind. But again, as a result of me kind of like putting this importance on it as well. So that was one way that I was kind of like expanding the ways in which spirit can communicate to us. But there's so much more. Anyways, I'll step back here and pass the talking stick around. I'd love to be able to learn a little bit more from each of us, and to be able to share our wisdom and experiences, and to dive a little bit deeper into this discussion. So Joan or Kristen, who would like to go next? Just go ahead and blink your microphone, and then I'll pass it over to whoever would like to go next. And maybe I think we'll probably pass over to Kristen, and then we'll pass over to Joan. And Joan, I'm grateful to be able to have you here. If you guys haven't connected with Joan of Angels, you would have seen Joan and myself through the Portal to Ascension conference, and and Joan has a lot of wisdom to be able to share. So we'll pass it over to Kristen. We'll get things warmed up, and then Joan, we'll pass over to you when you're ready, and anybody else who would like to be able to share, go ahead and raise your hand or join into the Discord when you're ready. So with that said, please welcome Kristen into today's circle. And Kristen, when you're ready, go ahead and share. How does spirit communicate with you, Kristen?
Hello, thank you so much, Brendon. And I just wanted to start off with a bit of gratitude for this space. And I'm really grateful too to share the space. Joan, I did hear your bit on Portal to Ascension. And so I'm really excited to hear what you have to share today. And as far as me and my journey with connecting with spirit and communicating with spirit, I think it comes in many forms. And it's interesting because, you know, Brendon, you mentioned like this can look many different ways, whether it's us communicating directly with spirit using different, form of prayer, or, chanting mantras. You can get into all kinds of affirmation practices. Lots of vocalizing our communication with spirit is super powerful. And I think that within that same realm, it's just as important to be open to receive, to hear spirit. And, like you mentioned, synchronicities and in your space. And I think those are so beautiful. They can be really great affirmations or guidance. And I think for me, one of the really special parts has been able to see the synchronicities and the ways in which spirit speaks in the really mundane areas of my life. And just kind of being able to see like where that magic can be brought into absolutely anything. And I know whenever I see stuff like that, that those are like extra little bits that spirit sends my way. Personally, I work with channeling through tarot cards and oracle cards. I do light language as well. So I think channeling is also a really beautiful tool to be able to communicate spirit and share kind of any wisdom that you may get whenever you are working with that communication aspect of it. And so I think that this is a really broad, beautiful topic. And I want to just inspire anyone who's on their own personal path working to connect with different ways of communicating with spirit, to allow yourself to have fun and to try new things and to see what works best for you, and learning not to question it as it comes, and seeing, like as Brendon mentioned, seeing those little signs like the fairy in the leaf, like that's something really special to you that can create a really beautiful moment in life. And to just get curious where you can really see how you can work with spirit to create within your own life, and begin to see the beauty unfold as you work hand in hand with them. So thank you so much for this beautiful space. I'm really looking forward to shares.
Thank you again, Kristen. And yeah, there's with this, I'll just say something real quick, and then we'll pass over to Joan. Again, the universe communicates to us through the language of symbols. So it's interesting because oftentimes, like the way spirit communicates to us within our waking state is very similar to the ways in which one could interpret dreams as well. When you look at dreams, again, that's like one big spirit message if you choose to interpret it from that perspective. And it's nothing but symbols. And so, like the symbols within our reality are a constant means for the universe to be able to communicate to us. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, is the universe always trying to communicate to us? But then it's also coming down to the idea of, are we listening? Are we paying attention? And that's something where, even when you're not fully conscious of it, is spirit still communicating with you? And I always kind of imagine like spirit on the other side, we're like it's like our higher angels and our guides are like, all right, send them the sign. And then they like put this like big billboard in front of our head with this blatant message. And then somehow we just like don't see it because we got our face in our phone or something like that. And then they're like, damn it, like, oh man, like try it again. And we send another message. And so again, there's a lot of ways to be able to look at this. But I think what's interesting, and what I hope to be able to encourage people, is to be able to seek to develop a deeper relationship, to evolve that relationship between yourself and spirit, to be able to grow that relationship of how spirit communicates with you. And that can be something quite simple, or it can be as dynamic as you choose to evolve it. It's really going to be a personal thing for each and every single person. So with that said, I'd love to be able to pass it over to Joan. So Joan, welcome to today's circle. And when you're ready, go ahead and feel free to, even if you want to briefly introduce yourself, you're more than welcome to. And how does spirit communicate with us, Joan? Welcome to today's circle. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you for having me on. I'm quite blown away by this platform. It's my first time. And by by the energies that you're stirring up. So well done. First, I'm hoping you can hear me, right? Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm Joan of Angels, guys, and the way I got my name and how it was that in 2013 I was in a very tough place. I had been writing books on miracles, and then I had a glitch in my own software and lost my own confidence. And so I was really asking Spirit for an answer, for help. And I really was. I was being very humble. And it was October 31st, actually, 2013, and I had a painting party at my house, and I suddenly heard messages to paint 33 angels in 30 days. So I'm sharing this with you because oftentimes we get a prompt from Spirit, and then we say, oh, that's too hard, that's too much, that's outrageous, and we ignore it. So all that night, I kept hearing this prompt, and it's like, those are the things I said. I can't paint, I can't do eyes, it's too much, how would I do it? And by the end of the night, I suddenly had an epiphany. And this, I think, is the epiphany I want to share with everyone. I got the epiphany that if I would just say yes, if I would just get over all my objections to this message I was obviously getting, and if I just said yes, it would change my life. And I had a feeling that I would then, be guided. It was like the sense was, if I just did the paintings in 30 days, I would actually know what I'm doing. And so I said yes. And so Spirit communicates to all of us. They put out a call so that we can do what we came here and agreed to do, because we are, each and every one of us, on a soul path, whether we know it or not. Here we go. But so they're aligned with us to do our highest purpose this life. And so they are going to give us promptings all the time, and then we have to choose. So one of the things that I learned recently is I've been teaching a class on intuition, and I make my students and myself have a journal. What happens to me when I listen to the voice of Spirit, and what happens to me when I don't? So that list of things that happens to me when I don't has proved to be very valuable, and I'm asking every one of you to start, because the more you pay attention to the messages you receive, then the more Spirit is going to give you the next message. And if you're in that flow and you're developing it, like Brendon obviously has, because he's an elemental and he has all this wisdom coming to him 24/7, he knows what to look for, well, then you're in a partnership with Spirit. So I say the first thing is that when you say yes, know that they're going to give you just as much as you need to do your next step, because they know that we're human and that we will run, hide, say it's too much work, or sometimes our human mind will get in the way. So we say yes, we do our job, they give us more. And that's how we step into hearing more, increasing our clairsentience, our clairaudience, our clairvoyance, and getting those synchronicities. That's in this ability of us to say yes, because we know that the guides are here to help us align with our destiny. So does that make sense? And does anyone have any questions about that? Oh, so I can finish up with what I do. So I help people remember why they're here. Remember their purpose, their big picture, their vision, so you can build up your skills this life that you've been given and develop them, like this ability to hear. So we build up those skills so you can walk your path. Now I'm ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Joan. And again, I know we're just scratching the surface here of this conversation, and for everybody here, go ahead and connect with Joan, Joan of Angels on Instagram, and again, you'll be able to find the links for all the people that we hear in today's circle in there as well. And Joan, I know, I'm sure there's there's more questions, but if anything, again, just kind of like moving it into the continued discussion, and we'll pass it over to our friend Jessica in the next moment, and then Joan, we'll bring it back to you as well. And if anybody does have any particular questions for Joan as we go, please by all means go ahead and even leave those into the YouTube chat. And Joan, while we're listening to the other speakers, please try and see if you can just kind of like figure out how to be able to get your sound working, because the original setting we did before we started the broadcast, your microphone was much clearer, and I'd love to be able to just see if we can get that set up. So if you're able to toggle with that as we're doing that, we'll test it by the time we come back around again, but no worries either way. And yeah, so with the idea of I'll just say this real quick, and then Jessica, go ahead and flash your microphone if you're ready to be able to. We'll pass over to you. Yeah. So again, with this idea, it's like how does spirit communicate with us? But then again, I think the question of why does spirit want to communicate with us? And for me, again, it kind of goes back to this idea that like spirit, aka the universe, aka consciousness, like it wants to be able to help us evolve. It wants to help us become more aware, and by evolve, I literally mean by evolving our consciousness, by expanding our awareness. And so when you think about it, the idea for communicate the idea for spirit to communicate with us is really expanding the sense of our being, to be able to understand that these symbols that are coming back to us are an extension of us. The symbols that we are receiving, they are our own voice, they are our own ears, they are our own eyes. So rather than just being limited to the five senses of our physical body, when we start communicating with spirit, it allows us to really be able to expand our perception into the perception of the land around us, as an example, or again, even outside of linear time, when you start thinking about it that way. And that's where the one thing I'll just say here real quick, and some of you have heard me talk about this before, is the idea of the chakras. And so very simply put, I've always thought, not always, but one thing that makes sense for me is to interpret the chakras as actually being practical organs, like metaphysical organs within the body, that are designed to be able to receive information from spirit, that are designed to be able to receive information from like beyond space and time, like from the future. The information from the future will ripple into our present, and we experience it through the chakra. This is where you get, again, kind of like the heart opening, or the stomach, kind of the gut feeling, or the vision of the third eye, and things like that. And one thing I'll just say for context, when we're talking about this, like for us, it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of like, here we are in the 21st century trying to talk about all this spirit and stuff, and who are we to talk about this? Well, first of all, who are we not? But the one thing I just want to be able to share is just a little bit of context. And this comes from even just, I was watching Penny Dreadful on the over the past month, and that's not really the point. But within that, there was a character of an Apache, and so the Apache, the like the Native Americans, and they in themselves, if you think about their connection to spirit, what was that like as an example? And you think about the ways in which they were connected with the land, and the ways in which they could actually like receive information that to like the people who weren't connected with that, who weren't tapped into that, like they were blind to it. So this is where you start looking at a lot of the Aboriginal cultures, and their connection with spirit was something that was actually second nature, and it would tell them things, and that information would help them survive. It would help them move forward, and that would be information about again, like the ways in which the herd was migrating, the seasons changing, the weather coming in, the ways in which the water would fall and rise, and things, and just like even having that intuitive like knowing of kind of like where to be able to move towards next, and things like that. So again, like you in your body, that's part of who you are, but as spirit, like you are not limited to the physical body. And when you open yourself up to that, you really begin to see that the entire world is an extension of your senses. And so it starts to get into like superhero level stuff, which is quite fascinating. Jessica, we'll pass it over to you, and I can also see we got Lucid Hippie joining in, Kyle joining in. So Kyle, we'll bring you up and we'll do a sound check once we are ready to pass it over to you. And Joan, we'll pass it over to you as well, and Kristen, as we keep going. If you guys again have any comments, please leave your questions in the chat or comments in the chat. And Jessica, with that said, I will pass it over to you. So go ahead, Jessica, when you're ready.
Thank you so much, Brendon, and thank you, Joan and Kristen so far. Yeah, you talk about expansion, and just the imagery that comes to mind for me is this, flowing water and this river. And for me, well, spirit speaks to me constantly. And I think that that's kind of the beautiful thing, is it's there whenever we want. wherever we want. And we are lucky enough to have the choice as to if we want to tune it in or if we want to tune it out. And we can do that in any way, at any capacity. You know, it's almost like a volume on like a you know, old school like, you know, CD deck or something like that. But there's been the times, of course, where I tuned it out, and eventually there is a message that has to come through, and it will keep getting louder and louder or more prominent in other ways until something big will happen in my life. Where, you know, just this past summer, I've been told to slow down, slow down, slow down in so many ways, and I was ignoring it. And then universe was like, all right, you're gonna get it. They gave me a concussion essentially, and I had to sit and rest in bed for like a week. So there's all those synchronicities. I definitely speak to spirit through my dreams quite a bit, and I've had that as a lifelong thing. But what I love is the connection with nature. I think when I come back to anytime I'm seeking spirit, getting into nature itself, as you talk about, I've also been blessed enough to have had connection with Native American ritual, Lakota ritual, that has taught me the importance of just being alone in nature and being with yourself, because that it is kind of one and the same. When you're with yourself, you are in nature, it brings you back. And then at the same time, it brings you connected to everything. And we can find, I find that spirit speaks to me through the wind, through the shapes in the clouds, through the ants that will, you know, invade my sleeping bag, kind of a thing. They all have messages, and the message that we receive is different for each person. Again, it's, to me, sometimes it's like we're all part of this one multifaceted diamond. So we could be receiving the exact same message, but of course it's gonna hit us a different way. There's a different reflection that's coming back. And I really appreciate seeing other people that are kind of tuning into this now, or have been, you know, aware of this and speaking their truth for so long. People like Joan and just more accepting, because that's what is just amazing, is finding the community of people that allows us. Sorry, my words, spirit's trying to come in right now, and I'm trying to like speak through it, but yeah, finding community with people, allowing us to connect in this way. Again, I feel like that river energy it's just flowing. Like that's what spirit really wants us to have, is movement. We're moving forward in some way. You know, the expansion aspect of it. So when we are tuning out spirit, it's a bit of stagnation. And so that's okay. That happens at times, but like it will eventually overflow and we'll have to move again in some way. And that can be a little bit more rough because it's kind of a bigger amount of energy that comes in. So, but it's a balance. I could tune into spirit all day long and I would probably go a bit mad. I'd have to admit. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say on the subject right now, but it's a beautiful conversation.
Thank you again, Jessica. And yeah, this is one of those conversations where I think we'll take it a little bit past the hour, not too long, but there's obviously a lot to be able to talk about here. And one thing I'll just say real quick is that, you know, it's interesting when we kind of when we sort of navigate ourselves through life, and there are times where, you know, we kind of like fall into this place of stagnation or just even depression, or again, just kind of like really feeling like disconnected and disconnected from ourselves. And oftentimes, not to say that there's, you know, like that those moments in themselves are teachers in themselves, but oftentimes the lesson in that is to become aware that we have sort of like distanced ourselves from spirit. Not that we can ever fully distance ourselves, but it's more so the awareness in which we creates the illusion of separation between ourselves. And really, again, you know, the process of communicating with spirit, very simply put, and I feel this is the theme that we always go back to, really comes down to the process of bringing it back to the wisdom of the heart. You know, it is through the heart that spirit can, you know, consistently be able to communicate to us. And I don't think it's like just through the heart, but I definitely find that through the heart, you know, like that's where we get those again, like and this is where it's interesting, and I'll just set this up, and somebody else could probably talk about this a little bit longer, where, you know, we talk about the idea of like of guardians and you know, like spirit family that are with us beyond this material plane, and even galactic federation, you know, like kind of like OUs, other us's, like extraterrestrial and everything like that, you know, and so like, are they themselves spirit? So, you know, spirit is spirit, like spirit is both the medium and the message, which I think is quite interesting. You know, it's like spirit is both like the water and the wave. So, you know, it's interesting to be able to just kind of like understand that, you know, when we are talking to each other, are we not spirit communicating with us? Am I not spirit communicating with you? Like, again, at what point is it not spirit? So I think it's just the awareness of you know, like the fact that we are all kind of like a part of this bigger ocean, really opens us up into the idea of understanding that, you know, within this ocean of energy, there is an abundance of information, and over time we can begin to kind of like realize how tuning our frequency can allow us to tap into different aspects of that information. So some people, they have their frequency tuned to a very small bandwidth, and that's okay. It just happens, and sometimes we do it intentionally or unintentionally. And then at other times, we can kind of pick and choose where to tune that frequency to. So I think sometimes the universe will tune itself to us and be like, here's a message that you can't ignore. But then within the other circumstances, we have the choice to be able to say, like, you know, like, okay, like I want to tune into this frequency. And so that could be, just as an example, that could be like, you know, taking time to meditate and sitting under a tree and connecting with the energy of Gaia. Like that could be a way that spirit communicates with you, is the idea that you invite in that communication, you invite in that relationship. And that's where a lot of times when it comes to working with angels, and even Joan, I'm sure, would have more to say on this as well, where again, you know, there's two scenarios. Imagine be like, okay, like, be like, man, like, come on, Mike, Archangel Michael, like I've been waiting, like where are you? Like, come on, man. Like you can kind of put out this message where it's just like you're like half-ass waiting for these like angels to communicate with you. But then it's also this process of, within the form of like the cosmic consent, like the law of cosmic consent, if there is such a thing, which I feel there is. You know, it's kind of like this idea where it's like, okay, I am tuning myself. I'm literally taking a moment, and it might even just be like 10 seconds to tune myself to that frequency, to say, like, this is just an example. Dear Archangel Michael, I invite you into communication with my spirit right now. Like I am focusing my attention on that part of the universe that your archetype exists as and in. And then with that kind of like opens up the form of communication as well. So spirit will communicate to you in as many or as little ways as you consciously tune yourselves to, so to speak. So how do you choose to tune? And I think it's okay to be able to have a preference to the ways that we communicate with spirit. You know, some people are going to prefer other ways to others, and vice versa, so to speak. So no limit on this, and it all comes down to your unique expression of spirit that you are, and creativity as well. So let's keep things passing around. Kristen, did you want to go next? And then Joan, we can pass it over to you. And then Kyle, I can see you trying to join. I'm just going to see if you might need to leave and try joining again. Sometimes it gets glitchy if it's not bringing you up right away. So we'll get you sorted, and we'll keep moving around here. So Kristen, would you like to go next? If so, just go ahead and unmute your microphone, and then Joan, will pass over to you in a moment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brendon. And Jessica, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing up the importance of that connection with nature. I know for myself, the ability to find those moments where we connect with the earth, if it be outside, you know, I love walking through the trees. I think that's one of the most connected places that I feel whenever I'm walking through the trees, and really just focusing on my breath and allowing myself to be open. And I think that's one of the really important aspects, is being curious and being open to hear and to receive those messages. And Brendon, you asked a question earlier. You asked, you know, why would spirit, you know, speak to us? Why, you know, why would we have communication? And I think it's one of the most beautiful aspects of being human, is we have this beautiful voice that we get the opportunity to create sounds with, that vibrate in others' ears and turn into this thought or this form. And I think that that's something that as humans we get to do, and spirit seize that opportunity and the ability to create from those thoughts, from those words, and turn it into something physical. And I think that's why, Jonah had mentioned, the inspiration for the paintings came in a message of like, oh, it was like she just knew she had to do it. This was the thing that needed to be done. And following that inspiration, allowing yourself to see how you can play with spirit and say, okay, I keep feeling this urge to do this thing. What happens when I say yes and I allow myself to do that? And then, the process of continuing on and working through the aspects of building that continued communication, because as you move, spirit will move with you. And I think too, one of the things I've noticed is if I choose to not take action on that thing that I hear or I feel or I know I need to do, it pops up in other areas of my life. A week later, oh, there's someone else doing that thing that I said was too hard for me to do, or whatever the case may be. But knowing that spirit is going to find a way to get these messages or get these ideas or thoughts out into the world to be expressed. And what a beautiful experience it is to be able to be a vessel of that expression and to share that with one another. And I think too, being able to admire each other's expressions of spirit communicating. And because really, who is to say that spirit's not speaking through me to you directly right now? And that's in and of itself a miracle, to be able to say that you can be able to hear what you need to hear and take that initiative to move forward. And maybe you just decided that you were going to go off and chase your dreams after hearing something from someone else. So yeah, I think physical communication is great, but I think that connecting with your breath and finding that silence in nature too can be really moving as well. I know I get a lot of my clarity when it comes to spirit in nature whenever everything is silent and I'm not thinking, talking, or speaking at all, and just allowing myself to be present in the moment and simply be. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you again, Kristen. And just just a quick thing. I love just all the examples of spirit communicating with us. One of my favorite ones is the one where you're like out in public and you're walking down a street, and then somebody else is walking past you, and they're like having another conversation. Maybe they're on the phone, or maybe they're talking to a friend, and then you hear like one sentence of like their conversation, and it totally is just like something where it's just like, what the hell, like was I supposed to hear that? Like, was that meant for me? It's just like you're walking, and they're like, yeah, you should totally do that thing, and you're just like, what? Like, but meanwhile, again, it's kind of like, is spirit using us as an instrument to be able to convey a message in a much bigger way than we realize? And that's kind of the interesting term, right? Like, instrument, like are we an instrument for spirit to communicate with us and to us, through us? And then thus, what are the other instruments? The instrument of nature, of animals, of even children. How many people have had those experiences where like a niece or a nephew just says like the craziest thing about like a past life, and you're just like, what the hell, like holy shit, like this is spirit speaking through this child right now. So yeah, lots of different ways to be able to do it. And again, I think the one thing I'll just mention real quick is for us to be able to become consciously to become better conduits for spirit to be able to communicate from us to community, much as what Kristen was talking about. And this can be, again, through conversation that we're having right now, but also, again, much like what Joan does, through mediums such as artistic expression, through flowetry, things that you guys hear me do a lot, through spoken word, through poetry, again, through content that we're creating for the internet. It's really exciting to just be able to open ourselves up to the idea to be able to say, like, dear universe, how can I be a better instrument to be able to communicate spirit through me to the bigger us, and then kind of stepping into that. Joan, we'll pass it over to you next, and Kyle, we'll pass it over to you after that. We'll make sure we go around at least a couple more times for everyone, and then we'll get close to wrapping it up. Joan, just go ahead and just test your microphone. I just want to be able to make sure it's working okay. And Joan, just go ahead and just say hello, or just test.
Hello.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I think we're still on the same settings as before, but that's okay. So Joan, we'll pass it over to you. And Joan, there was a question that came through in the chat from earlier, and you can wrap this in with whatever else you want to share as well. And one of our community members, Wild Woman Awakening, was asking, can you please elaborate on clairsentience? And I feel that would be something that you'd be able to definitely do as well. So Joan, passing it over to you. Anything else you want to discuss relative to what's been shared so far, and if you'd like to be able to dive a little bit deeper into that question, that would be appreciated as well. So Joan, back over to you when you're ready.
Oh my God. Okay. This is an amazing conversation. That's all I can tell you. I'm blown away to hear it from all of you. So here's we'll start with clairsentience, okay? Clairsentience is that ability to know just because you know. So you might hear something on the radio, say, when I heard about Fukushima years ago, I knew that it was going to get worse and was not being cleaned up and was a global, catastrophe. And my logical minded friends all said, Joan, they said they're cleaning it up. What's wrong with you? Okay. So clairsentience is when you know that you got extraterrestrial contact. It's that feeling that you know that you know that you know. And so that's extremely powerful. It's a sense. It's what will guide you through everything that's going on, because we can't trust what they're telling us out in the world. We have to know from inside. So just I don't want to go there, but so that's the first thing. And so that's one of the clairs. It's one of the things that I hear it on my right side, and I literally will have it as a sense of just knowingness, or oftentimes I'll hear it as a direct instruction, or I'll be doing a reading for someone and a picture of the snail or the seashell will come in. It's so random because I'm thinking about snow or something, and when I mention it, it's exactly what they're thinking. So getting confirmations, guys, is great, but I feel like the universe, the higher we get in our ascension process, the more we want to leave the third dimension and go into the higher dimensions. We do that by being more in the state of flow. The universe, the air around us is a flow. It's not empty. It's a constant, like river or stream. Your thoughts are constantly going out, and you're being impacted by that stream around you. And the other concept is to understand we're all part of this creator, and we each do have our own mission, and we're assigned our own spiritual team that's here to help us. And so the more we understand that, and that we're actually seeking to raise our vibration so that we can be in that higher state, then the easier it gets, if that makes sense. And then everything becomes significant. You're living in a shamanic state where all has meaning. You're in ceremony, and everything has meaning. That little flower, or that the ants in your sleeping bag, they're all messages and spirits. It's like, how do we communicate with our dogs or cats? Some of it's gut, but there's another language, and spirit and source have another language, and it's the language of your intuition, your heart, and then also remember the most famous inventors and the brilliant minds of the world, Bell and Einstein, have all said they were connected, like a radio antenna, radio frequency. They were getting that voice and download that was coming down to them. So that's all I want to say, is just say yes and ask to enhance that connection.
Beautiful. Joan, thank you so much. Love being able to have you here and sharing your wisdom, and yeah, lots to be able to talk about, so we'll keep things moving along. And Kyle, if you would like to go next, just go ahead and blink your microphone, and we'll pass it over to you. And Beliz, I can see you trying to join. I think you might need to like exit and rejoin again. Sometimes it glitches out, I'm not sure why, but we'll make sure we bring you up as well. And Kyle, if you're ready, just go ahead and blink your microphone, and I'd love to be able to pass it over to you if you'd like to go next. Perfect. All right, so Kyle, welcome to today's circle, and when you're ready, go ahead and share. How does spirit communicate with us?
Everybody, thanks for holding this conversation. Honestly, I'm just gonna pipe in really quick, have some friends over. I'm basically gonna so my way of like spirit communicating with me, like what I've known, there's like synchronicities and other things like that have happened in my life and stuff, and meeting the right people. And I always say the universe takes care of me and stuff. But one thing I noticed was what what I know of is called Kundalini Rising or something. I never knew what it was called until I told a buddy what symptoms I guess I was getting, and when I basically it always happens when I'm driving and I'm kind of in that flow state. I'm basically thinking of something positive, and the chills like descend on me. And when the chills descend and the hair starts to rise and the goosebumps start to activate, I started to realize that if I continuously think good thoughts, and even things that at the time I may not thought would be possible, like say like I can change the world, or I can do this, or I can do that, or I can help this person, and just like very high vibration positive thoughts, I would start getting the chills would start to amplify, and they would amplify to the point where I can almost hear like a noise within going through me, like whoomp, 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 like universal energy feeling, and it would radiate through the top of my skull and down to the bottom of my tailbone and kind of radiate out like a flower. And the chills would get so intense where it almost started tickling, almost hurting. It kept pushing it and pushing and pushing it. So when I asked a friend, or I just started explaining this to a friend once he was studying Buddhism, and he was like, "Oh, that's like Kundalini Rising or whatever." And to this day, like I don't think about it that way. I think about it as soon as it's positive vibrations and feelings, then I amplify them, and it amplifies so much. And I find when I have a good idea, or I'm on the right track, or I'm thinking of the right thing, these that signal comes in me, and it comes in me strong. And if I think deeper into it and think further, more positive thoughts, then that feeling amplifies so strong, and I feel like it gives me enough energy, like life force energy for months. And I mean, that's to me is one of the direct ways spirit has communicated with me. And that's all I have to say, I think. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Yeah, I love again the idea of like that energy sensation up the spine, and I'm sure everybody here is familiar with similar versions of that. I also kind of like the term not just goosebumps but truth bumps. So again, it's kind of like this like internal sensation that kind of like indicates us something of importance. And again, oftentimes that will happen where I remember even just reading comments where people would be like watching something on TikTok, or like, or again, if you're, especially what I find is that like those moments where those kind of truth bumps or those activation sensations is another term, activation sensations. I like to refer to it as that, because I do feel that when those happen, it literally is kind of like it's activating. It's like an energy channel that's kind of like opening up as well, a natural energy channel as well. But I often find that it's very much correlated to emotion, and when we're kind of in that like open heart space, when we see something that inspires us or deeply resonates or something that really touches our heart, then usually the body naturally kind of like responds with this as well. So again, it's kind of the internal mechanism to respond to some sort of external stimulus that reflects like some sort of importance. So it's like, it's our body communicating with us in a way that's actually like very prominent to the point where we can't ignore it, where it's just like, whoa, okay, like something's happening. And then over time we can begin to correlate, and we're like, oh, each time I get this sensation, it means, XYZ. It means, pay attention, or it means, this is something to pursue a little bit further, or this is something that speaks truth to me, so to speak. So, I'll just say here real quick, and then Jessica, if you'd like to go next, I'll pass it over to you. And Kyle, thanks so much again for joining in. If you got to jump out in a couple minutes, that's fine. But if you're around, we'll pass it back and make sure everybody at least gets one more time. And last call on anybody else who might want to join in as well. Feel free to jump in. And Joan, if you want to jump back in and raise your hand, feel free. But again, in terms of like how does spirit communicate with us, the simple answer is it will communicate with us. However, communication is a two-way street. So even though spirit may be communicating with us, the real question is, in terms of the how, is that we have to listen. Are you listening? And Beliz, if you want to try rejoining, I'd like to be able to see if we can bring you up on. Just try exiting the stage and try joining again, because I know you're trying to raise your hand. But again, like this idea of, are you listening? Because if you're not listening, then spirit may be communicating with you, but it might not be registering. It might not be again reaching you. It's like you're leaving messages from the universe left unread, you know, to use a metaphor related to social media that we would be able to understand. How many people have an entire like back catalog of unread messages from the universe, right? So what we want to be able to do is to be able to pay attention to our self-awareness in degrees of terms of, are we listening? And so a simple way to be able to do this is meditation, mindfulness, awareness, checking in with ourselves. And this is where, again, you know, in terms of the practical aspects, start your day listening to spirit. And that could mean, again, just kind of like taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just connect with your breath, connect with the softness, connect with the stillness, go inside. And maybe that means asking a question, or maybe it just means listening to your heart and paying attention to what arises. Again, you know, like spirit is speaking through us all the time, because, you know, we in ourselves are like a radar dish or an antenna for this cosmic energy. And so I think when we can do this, you know, this is where, when we do take that opportunity to be able to listen with the intention of being able to hear our own spirit speak, you know, hearing the things of, you know, like, what do I need right now? Or what am I grateful for right now? Or what do I feel inspired to do right now? And then using that as a way to be able to further direct us on our course of action. So I think, again, when we consciously develop this deeper communication, why is this beneficial? Multiple reasons. It helps us kind of like accelerate the rate in which we move through this reality in terms of point A to point B in the synchronicities, but it also enriches the life. It enriches our world with more substance, with more magic. Things become a little bit more meaningful, as we were talking about. You know, things aren't just mundane, things are actually quite significant. And it really just allows us to be able to see the world with an extra level of detail that for many of us can make things quite beautiful. And it really just makes each day another opportunity to celebrate the fact that we are spirit communicating with itself. And again, working towards that bigger mission of helping others connect with spirit in their own way and awakening the consciousness of ourselves and the collective. Beliz, I'll try bringing you up on stage, and let's just see if we can get Beliz on. And then Jessica, I'd love to be able to pass it over to you. Joan, again, if you would like to be able to come up, please feel free to do that. And yeah, we'll get close to wrapping this up in the next little bit. So Beliz, it looks like you're up on stage. So Beliz, just go ahead and test your microphone. We'll just make sure that we can hear you okay, and then we'll pass it over to you.
Can you hear me right now?
Yep, we can hear you. So Beliz, welcome back on stage. And when you're ready, go right ahead and share. How does spirit communicate with us?
Thank you so much for your thank you so much for this. How does spirit connect with me? Like you said, I think with everything, and I kind of want to ask. I mean, my cat, he's a she. You know, like he's a feminine energy, and I'm so grateful for him. And I'm like it's really feels like it's hard to find a feminine flowing person in a metropole city, and when you do, she's like also masculine, and I am like kind of confused, because when I was like trying to hear my inside voice, and like some person came to my life, and he found out that I was hearing that sensation, and he kind of manipulated that sensation, and that confused my reality. Like you said, I want to go to nature, and then I want to go to therapy someday. And then after the other day, they're like, what about therapists? You know, how can you trust therapists? Did they like dissolve the ego in my reality? And but like, you came to my world again, and I'm really grateful for this high vibrational state. And everybody's saying things, and you're trying to listen to them, but they're also kind of like, and I'm finding myself singing from my balcony, and I'm trying to raise. I do raise the vibration. Then someone pops out and says that you shouldn't sing, and they all you go kind of like you kind of come to a point that you cannot differentiate what is real and what is the right thing. I don't know. But I will definitely go to nature. I didn't spend time alone in nature, like so little. So definitely will do this. And this conversation, really, thank you for this love.
Thank you again, Beliz, for being here and for joining, and just hearing what you shared there again. Within this conversation, one thing that is definitely worth mentioning, and I'll just put this in here, and maybe anybody else, if you want to speak on it, that's fine. But we'll get close to just kind of going through one more time, just with some closing thoughts. Is again, the context, the concept of discernment. Within the idea of being able to, again, kind of like connect with this concept of communicating with spirit, because I think in a lot of cases throughout this reality, we still have the responsibility to be able to we can hear something, but then it's up to us to be able to choose, like how we relate to it, and we can hear something, we can say, like, and be like, okay, like, does that resonate with me? Awesome, that inspires my heart, or that gives me a piece of valuable information that's going to help assist me, and then you kind of choose to incorporate that. But there may be other messages that, again, maybe something that again, whether or not you interpret it as communication from spirit is going to be a very personal perspective, but it's always going to be important for us to be able to come across information in a variety of forms, and then be able to say, like, what, like, I get it, but that's not for me. And so it's just because this idea that spirit is constantly communicating to us, I think, again, what's also important is we're creating those, like, healthy boundaries and healthy filters, and making sure that we're creating that space for ourselves to be able to find that place where it doesn't feel as if it's overwhelming. Because I know for a lot of people, especially when you this conversation, in some cases, it kind of even, not that I can speak on this personally, but for some people who, again, are neurodivergent, this is something where, for them, it can actually be quite challenging, where they're just like, oh, like, I constantly feel like, is this spirit communicating with me all the time? Am I going crazy? Like, what's actually happening here? And I think, again, that's part of, oftentimes, like, what can be a challenging thing within this experience as of being human. And I honestly don't have all the answers for that, but I do know that within this process, whether someone's neurodivergent or otherwise, I think being able to have a place to be able to bring things back to, a centering practice, a place to be able to practice kind of just like quieting our own mind, quieting our own noise, having that space within our own, like, temple, physically, as well as, like, like physically within our space, as well as, like, physically within our own body as well. So, is spirit communicating with us? Yes, absolutely. Are all the messages going to be something that we constantly have to, like, be processing every single moment? Not necessarily. So again, I think it's a balance of, like, having a bit of, like, a filter for ourselves, and using discernment, and then having that space to go back to, where, again, if things do get a little bit noisy, we can kind of retain, again, like that solace through a practice of connecting with stillness as well, and cultivating stillness. For those of you in the YouTube chat, if that resonates with you, because, again, I know there are several members within our community who can speak more about being neurodivergent, and would be able to speak more on this more directly. And if that resonates with you, go ahead and let me know in the chat, maybe just an 1111 or otherwise. But again, it's a bigger conversation that I know we'll be talking more about within further discussions in Paradigm Shift Central and otherwise. But let's keep things moving along here. Divine Consciousness, I can see you joining in. We're getting close to wrapping things up here, so I'm going to bring you up on stage, and we'll pass it over to just Jessica, and then after that, Divine Consciousness, we'll pass it over to you, and then from there, we'll just go through with some closing thoughts, and then we'll be done for today's topic. So Jessica, if you would like to be able to jump back in, go ahead and do that now. And did what I say, did it make sense? Like, did spirit communicate somewhat? Man, communicating words is hard, man. Like, it takes a lot of work to be able to communicate things clearly. So shout out to us humans making noises with our mouth and communicating emotions and stuff like that. So Jessica, over to you.
Seriously, Brendon, I thought what you said was really spot on, and I'm at that point too, where spirit's like, I have so many thoughts right now, so I have to discern right now, even what do I want to follow, what do I want to speak on here. I really resonated with Joan and much of what she said, and really thinking about some of the most innovative creators of our time have been really connected to spirit, and it made me think about how, you know, if we remember that being connected to spirit is something that is innate. It is, like you said, throughout so many cultures, throughout our whole history of as human beings. And here we are at this very interesting time where the separation of from ourselves is become more pronounced, and even that in and of itself feels like a message from spirit, and it leads us to have this choice. And I hear Belize, and I just kind of wanted to say, like, when you spoke, I felt that really deep. And being in nature is an important thing, but as one of my mentors said, if that means you stick your finger in a potted plant and just touch dirt that way, that is connection right there. It's great when you can get out, but there are the small things. Singing and music in and of itself is so powerful for me. And it is hard when we find ourselves, you know, kind of in these spaces where we feel distant or disconnected or separated, and we feel like we need to construct ourselves a very specific way. And so I think about this idea of discernment as well, and there is a balance going on there. And being a parent, I look at my kids as another reflection and teacher for myself. You know, they look to me to, I am essentially a guide for them to understand that sometimes we just need to be held so that we can, you know, they can figure out how to recalibrate if they're having a hard time going through a tantrum or something like that. They just need the space to know that they're safe. And so I look at the messages I receive through spirit to also help guide me into the safe spaces that I need to be, spaces like this or other spaces and people I've connected with through these communities. Because when we come together in those spaces, it creates that net that will catch us, and that we will then catch others, and it will grow from there and expand outwards. So it's been a beautiful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And yeah, again, I know there's. I just want to put a couple themes in it that didn't specifically get mentioned. Within this topic, you know, there's the whole concept of divination, which again, you know, tarot mentioned briefly by Kristen, but then you also got, again, you know, like scrying, and again, you know, like pendulums and things like that. But again, you know, the concept of like connecting with spirit, the history of it is quite rich and quite fascinating. And again, this is where you get into the history of shamans and seers. And so, you know, many of us, if anything, spiritually or also genetically, we come from a lineage of seers. So, you know, for us today, there's the opportunity for us to be able to continue to hone those natural abilities, and yet to be able to use them in a modern day world, and with a world that's so full of information. You know, again, it can be a little bit of an obstacle course to be able to determine the best ways to be able to use those. But I think just being able to keep things simple as well is also very, very important. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways for each of us to continue to be bridges for spirit to be able to communicate. And I think whenever you are communicating with spirit, especially when it comes to messages and symbols and stuff, you know, very simply put, like there is the importance and both like the intention and the power of just putting out that intention to be able to be like, you know, like any spirits that I'm communicating with, it's like I am opening to communicating with all like benevolent and loving spirit, so to speak, you know. So just like putting that little intention, or maybe if it even just means like, you know, visualizing like a white light around you, so just having that like little bit of extra attention and intention. And again, that's something that I know there's more people who can speak better on that than myself, but I just wanted to be able to put that in there just for a little bit more context for the topic. Let's keep things rolling here. We'll pass it to Divine Consciousness, and then from there we'll go through one more time with any closing thoughts, and then we'll be done for today. Divine Consciousness, if you just want to test your microphone, just go ahead and unmute yourself and just test your microphone. We'll just make sure it's working. Say hello.
Test. Hello.
Hello. Perfect. Welcome. Divine Consciousness, welcome to today's circle. And when you're ready, go ahead and share. How does spirit communicate with us?
Thank you for having me. You nailed neurodivergency on the head, so thank you for that. Oh geez, feeling so much right now. You guys nailed how spirit communicates so well. One of the things I feel that was left out was emotion. Emotion's a huge thing. One of my favorite quotes by Kentaro Miura was, "There is a great chasm between what you feel and what you know. And I feel emotions help bridge that gap no matter how vast it is. But thank you for having me here. I'm going to leave it at that. And I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Divine Consciousness, and it's funny that you said that because even when we were talking earlier, I was like, yes, that like emotions. I think I briefly mentioned it a little bit, but just to be able to reiterate it, absolutely, like emotions are like again emotions, like energy in motion. So we're talking about this idea that like it's all the communication, it's all energy. So when we think about how do we communicate with spirit, again, it also goes in line with the idea of how do we get better at communicating with spirit. And I think one of the ways to get better at communicating with spirit is to become more in tune with our own emotions, emotional intelligence, to become more self-aware of, oh, I'm feeling this way. What does this mean? What do I need? What is my body telling me? What is my emotion telling me? What is my spirit telling me? So again, it's up to us. We have this free will to be able to receive, the messages will come through, but then it's up to us to use this free will to be able to consciously relate to that message or to ignore it. So let's see if we can, again, continue to deepen the relationship by bringing more awareness to it. And emotions is absolutely a big part of that. So thank you, Divine Consciousness. And that's where, again, for a lot of us, like that, it just simplifies it. I think this topic, it doesn't have to be all, like psychics and witches and seers and shamans and stuff. It's like, man, like this is actually a normal everyday thing that we are doing all the time, but perhaps we just aren't seeing it through that lens. And but at the same time, I think we're moving into a day and age where many of us are, and this goes hand in hand with the evolution of our consciousness and moving. I'll just say this, and I'll pass it over to either Kristen or Joan, whoever wants to go next. Just go ahead and blink your microphone. But one thing I'll just say, with this topic is a segue related to the evolution of our consciousness, where we have evolved as humans to the point where the next step of the human of evolution is Homo luminous, proto-human. Homo luminous is the idea of, again, becoming aware that we literally are these light beings, these like metaphysical higher dimensional beings, and with that also these abilities. So if you were to think of, like, well, what does a higher conscious civilization look like? Imagine that within your mind. Imagine the idea of, they can probably communicate images to each other through telepathic communication. And again, that goes hand in hand, and we'll do another topic on this another time, where basically, like, we already are telepathic. We just might not interpret it quite the way how we think we do, but we have the ability to be able to transmit messages and signals and emotions, and we're doing it through words and feelings, but we just don't give ourselves the credit that we deserve sometimes. So Joan, I'll pass it over to you. Thank you guys again. I know I spoke a little bit longer than I intended to, but obviously there's a lot to share. And Joan, we'll pass it over to you, and then Kristen after that. Joan, when you're ready, go ahead.
All right. Well, okay. Well, that was brilliant. So much we've covered. I can't even believe each area has a whole new horizon. But I wanted to give you guys a simple thing that I do a lot, especially for answers or clarity, is that I like to sit with a morning cup of tea and I'll pull cards. And I'll meditate and pull cards. But even the pulling of the cards is part of my meditation. And I'll just ask, what do you want me to know today? And it's remarkable how the cards just lay out exactly aligned with really where you're supposed to go, how the day is supposed to be. It may look and say, oh my God, you're out of balance over here. But I think that's a simple way to just connect on a daily basis, to just align with where you're going. So that was one of my helpful suggestions on connecting with spirit. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you again, Joan. And again, we'll just go around a little bit more. But Joan, if there's more any closing thoughts that you'd like to be able to share as we get close to concluding, we'll definitely do that. And one thing I was going to say, just again, because we didn't mention it yet, and Kristen, you may even have something to say on this. Again, light language is something that I'm incredibly fascinated by, and that is, again, a kind of like another way in which spirit can kind of communicate to us through us. As well. So yeah, light language, again, kind of what is in the past been known as like speaking in tongues, but again, it's like this primordial language that even though it isn't using words that we recognize as any language from this planet, it's like this primordial language that is like the language of emotions and light and energy as well. So it's fascinating to be able to imagine that, here we are speaking with words, but words in themselves are actually quite limiting. What is language like above words? And I think it's one that is innately entwined with again, emotions and spirit and energy as well, so not just sound. So Kristen, I'll pass it over to you. Let's get close to wrapping this up. No worries on if there's a lot that you want to say. I'd love to be able to hear it. And yeah, any thoughts that you'd like to be able to share, and getting close to closing thoughts as well. So Kristen, when you're ready, go ahead. I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Oh, this discussion has been so beautiful. And divine consciousness, I'm so grateful that you brought in that element of emotion. And I will talk about light language, but there's a lot else that I wanted to share about channeling and scrying and working with divination tools. But one of the first things that when I first started channeling light language, I started writing it, well, painting it actually, and then I started feeling it in my body. And one of the biggest questions was like, how do I know what it is, what is happening, basically. It's kind of it's a strange scenario, but once you learn to just accept and not question, not knowing that the answer doesn't have to be a word, something that you may already know, but rather trusting, leaning more into that feeling aspect. What does it feel like? How does it make you feel when you're saying the words? Or how does it feel in your space whenever you're, moving your hands? Or, what does the overall feeling of the writing, look like? And that was how I was able to connect with the knowing of the messages that are coming through in the light language. So yeah, having that connection between your ability to really connect with those clairsenses, those abilities to see, hear, feel, think, or know outside of your physical understanding, and connecting in with that more spiritual, that elemental, that feeling nature is going to be really beautiful to be able to work with that. And scrying is actually something that has always been a pull for me, and it's always been really interesting because there's many different ways you can learn it, but it's typically a very sacred practice. And to be able to work with scrying, which is utilizing, you can either scry with water, some people utilize crystal balls, you can scry with wax, smoke, um, clouds. I think there's there's lots of different ways that you can do it, but I think again, it comes back to that, like, how do you know what messages are coming through? And it comes through to that trusting, that feeling, that knowing that whatever messages are coming through to you is what is needing to be seen, and kind of feeling into them to lead through the story, to be able to see into the more. And it works the same you can whenever you work with the cards. And I love Joan mentioning that morning tea with your with your cards and your tea, and what exactly we're gonna need to know for today, and the wisdom that can come through is really beautiful when you allow it to be just that open-ended question of, what do I need to know for today? What's the overall energy? What are we what are we working through? And allowing yourself to see the connection. And I'll bring it back to that, like, seeing the pictures in the cards, what, the different, oh, maybe you noticed that butterfly is like really standing out to you. Okay, well, let's get curious. What does the butterfly stand for? Oh, it stands for transformation. You know what? I have gone through a lot of things in my life recently where I feel like I have been transforming. Okay, cool. And allowing yourself to kind of see how those elements can play into that message. And I mean, if you really want to dive deep into that hole, you really can, because you can start looking into the colors and the shapes, and the sizes of things, different creatures, or the meanings behind different things. And I think too, even when you get to a certain point with it, you can start to see the story be told within the images or the words, and the transformation of from card to card. And so yeah, I think that's all I'd like to share for now. And I'm just really grateful for this space. As always, Brendon, these circles are so inspiring, and I always feel really encouraged to go out and continue these conversations. And I was just really very grateful to connect with everyone in their heart wisdom. Thank you all.
Thank you again, Kristen. Yeah, this is a everyone's always very special, and yeah, I definitely appreciate where this one's guided us so far. And again, with any of these discussions, I hope that for the people listening, I hope this continues to inspire you to not only continue to have this discussion, but again, to also to be able to deepen your own relationship, and maybe after this, you can just kind of put out that intention where it's like, dear universe, like send me a sign XYZ, like if you're there, like I'm listening, sort of thing. And some days you'll get like 10 synchronicities, and some days you'll get none, and maybe you'll just kind of like, one thing I find is that the significance of a synchronicity is not just based on like how many you have. Oftentimes, like, I'll be so busy in my work and stuff like that I won't have like a noticeable synchronicity throughout the day, and then lo and behold, I'm just kind of like doing my own thing, and then suddenly a big synchronicity just kind of like comes into my reality, and I'm like, there it is. But again, it was kind of one of those like I was in the right place at the right time, and then lo and behold, that synchronicity like kept me satisfied for the whole week. It's like that's it. I don't even need any more spirit messages. That's all I needed. Like I got enough information to be able to operate from my perspective. But again, in terms of I'll just say this, and then we'll go around just one more time with any closing thoughts. In terms of communicating with spirit, again, it's like, well, why do we want to communicate with spirit? What Kristen, what Joan, what we were both kind of talking about there is, again, this idea that, think of spirit as the extension of yourself that has more ability to be able to see that which is beyond your physical senses. So if you're moving throughout your day, using tarot or scrying or meditation is a great way to just kind of check in with yourself and just kind of be able to just be like, like, what do I need to be mindful of today? What is a piece of information that you can give me that's going to help me move through today with a little bit more grace, a little bit more mindfulness, a little bit more heart-centered oriented action as well. So in the process of communicating with spirit, it is the process of also, again, just kind of like bringing us back into the mindfulness of the heart. As well. It can be a very humbling experience. So I like to think of communicating with spirit, again, as kind of like the part of us, the oversoul, the bigger us, that it is still us, the part of us I can see through space and time, and then here we are, the 3D version of us, and then that 5D, the part of us I can see through space and time. It's kind of like the part of us that's like doing recon, if I were to use kind of like a term from kind of like hunting and gathering and even like military. It's like the part of us that's like on the horizon that can already see things before they even come to us. And then here we are, and then it's like, all right, spirit, what do you got for us? And it's just like, okay, we've got like XYZ coming in hot, like, okay, let's coordinate our actions appropriately, sort of thing. And then yes, there will still be surprises and so forth, but again, sometimes when we work with spirit, it allows us to just like emotionally, mentally, and like to prepare ourselves, and with a little bit more of that ability to be able to move through things with grace, as I was saying as well. So you are not just the physical body that you are experiencing this reality through. Who you are is, again, like the bigger you. And in the process of communicating with spirit, that is you communicating with you. So the one thing I'll just say, because I've talked about this before in terms of communicating with spirit, obviously the synchronicities, seeing 1111 and everything like that, that's one way that a lot of people are familiar, and a lot of people even kind of wake up to this reality. They kind of wake up within the matrix, so to speak, through the synchronicities of, oh my goodness, why do I keep seeing 1111? It's blatant, it's right there, it keeps happening to me. And then eventually it kind of moves through this process where it gets your attention, and then that eventually evolves into a form of communication where it's more of an affirmation or just like pointing you in the right direction. But I'll just plant this seed here just as a little bit of practical action that you guys can incorporate. And some of you have heard me talk about this before, but basically the idea of using numbers is actually a great way to be able to communicate with spirit, because it is something you'll see quite frequently: car license plates, telephone numbers, bank cards, etc., etc. And then specifically, this is where it gets interesting, specifically programming the way in which spirit communicates to us through your preference, where you can basically say like, okay, spirit, like my primary synchronicity number is going to be 222, or it's going to be 555 or 532, or it could be whatever you want. Find some sort of significant number that means something to you, and then basically tell the universe that that's the number that you are using as the medium for it to be able to primarily communicate to you. Yes, there will be other, you'll still see 1111 and stuff like that, but notice if you're just like, okay, like 72, that's my prime number, like that's my prime synchronicity channel. Dear universe, send me a 72 when you really want to be able to like communicate something to me. And then lo and behold, it will happen if you open your heart and you open your mind to it. I experienced this firsthand using 9-6 and variations of it, and 6-9, and to the point where like that for me, it became like an experiment where I was like, oh my goodness, like this is actually working. So the ways in which spirit communicates with us, I'll just say this, and we'll just go around one more time, is it's a two-way street. And so you meet the universe halfway. Sometimes the universe will bring the message to your front door, but many times it is the process of you meeting the universe halfway. It's like you holding out your hands to be able to say like, dear universe, I'm opening to receive. And then the universe places something in your hand. However, if you have your hands in your pocket and behind your back and doing other things, the universe will have a message and it'll be like, well, where do I put this? Okay, I'll just leave it here, I guess, and maybe they'll find it, so to speak. So, when you wake up in the morning and you metaphysically, symbolically put your hands out, again, kind of like holding them up like a cup, it's like place this message in my hands. Then the universe is like, good, they're paying attention. Let's send them something. Let's send them something important. And again, this is a great thing that you can incorporate into your dream practices as well, when the intention significantly affects the ways in which spirit communicates to us. So the other thing I will just say, in themes with this, for anybody who's interested, we do have our dream discussion circle this weekend. That's the one that Lacey and I host Saturday at 11 a.m. EDT every 2 weeks, and that's available for our Patreon members. So quick plug there for the Patreon if you guys want to join in for that. That's exclusive for our members, and we'll be talking more about spirit messages there as well. But let's go through one more time just with some closing thoughts. This one's gone a little bit longer than today, so I appreciate everybody sticking around. And for whoever would like to be able to add in some closing thoughts, just go ahead and blink your microphone now, and I will pass it to you in a little, once we figure out like what the general order would be. And again, even just any closing gratitude, we can do that as well. So for anybody who'd like to share any closing thoughts and gratitude, we'll do that. Joan, we'll pass it over to you, and then we'll pass it over to anybody else after that. So yeah, I can see everybody blinking. So Joan, passing it back to you. Any closing thoughts and gratitude? When you're ready, go right ahead, Joan. And thanks again for being here.
Oh, many closing thoughts and gratitude. This has been very empowering and learning so many new ways of connecting. But I just wanted to say this. We should all trust. It helps if we trust that we are here for a divine reason. Anyone who is here right now is here to really step into spirit. It's a divine appointment. But it's a divine appointment to be here on the planet right now, 221, and you have a special mission already, a special purpose. So I like to send my antenna up to the universe and just really know and trust that this is true, and that the guides are here to help you and me achieve what we came here to do, which is the ascension of each and every one of us. So I just leave you with that. We have those skills. There are ways you can learn to enhance them. You can work with any of the people here who have really special gifts in deepening your connection and your why and your purpose to open up the doors. Step in your leadership. And so it is. I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much, Brendon.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Joan. Grateful to be able to have you here. Again, quick plug, Joan of Angels on Instagram. Everybody here, be sure to connect with Joan if you haven't already. Who would like to go next? Divine Consciousness, I saw you blinking. I can pass it over to you. And then anybody else, Kristen, I know you blinked as well. So we'll go through after that. Divine Consciousness, any closing thoughts and gratitude? Feel free to share if you would like to go next. You can go right ahead.
Just appreciate you all for sharing, and yeah, I'm feeling so much right now. So I'm my words and thoughts aren't correlating at the moment. Thank you all again. Keep being you. Keep following your heart, listening to your heart, and just remember that love is the law. Do as thou wilt.
Thank you again, Divine Consciousness. Thank you for your words. Thank you for your contributions today. And yeah, again, I think, yeah, keep following your heart, everyone. Absolutely. I like that quote, like intuition is like the GPS for the soul, so to speak. So anybody else who would like to be able to add in some closing thoughts? Kristen, I'll pass it over to you, and then anybody else after that, just go ahead and blink your microphone now so I know that you want to add in any closing thoughts. Jessica, we'll pass it over to you after that. Kristen, when you're ready, we'll pass it over to you. Go ahead. And real quick, Campton, I can see you. Campton, if you did want to plug in anything real quick, we're almost done here, but you're more than welcome to. I can pass it to you after Kristen. So Kristen, over to you first, and then Campton, if you want to add in anything last minute, we'll get you in there. So Kristen, go right ahead.
Yeah, many blessings and so much gratitude to each and every one of you for sharing your divine heart wisdom and your personal expressions. It's such a blessing to be able to connect with you all, and I'm just really grateful for each and every one of you, and the wisdom you've shared has touched me today and inspired me to move forward and continue sharing and continue connecting. So I'm just sending my love and gratitude to each and every one of you for the rest of your day. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Kristen. And Kristen, Pinnock Rising on Instagram if you guys haven't connected there. And Campton, welcome to today's circle. I know you probably missed some of the earlier discussions, but any thoughts that you want to be able to add in to this beautiful cake of a discussion, feel free to top it with whatever sort of additional decorations and goodies you would like to be able to sprinkle on. It's a horrible metaphor, but it kind of works. Campton, go ahead if you want to jump in. Feel free to closing, close to closing thoughts. If you would like to be able to add in, go ahead and do that now, Campton.
Sure. So specifically closing thoughts or gratitude, or how does spirit communicate with us as well, like a little touch?
Yeah. You can do both since you weren't able to join earlier. That's okay. So yeah, you can just take a couple minutes to share from your thought how spirit communicates with us. Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. So, okay, perfect. So it's actually great to be here amongst the loving energy in this community. I'm really grateful for your ears and your time and consideration. And I mean that with the depth of my heart. How does spirit communicate with us? I'll just touch on this slightly because I know we're hitting the kind of end of this thing, and then I'll share some gratitude. But how does spirit communicate with us? Well, essentially, my main foundation for my philosophy, I guess, on existence is the fact that we are spirit, essentially like an extension of that, extension of the same intelligent force that has birthed our existence. And I think, how does spirit communicate with us? Well, that's our intuition, that's our heart, it's our natural instinctive capabilities that the ego, this quote ego, this psychological complex or inner dialogue or assumption of reality talks us out of because of the societal conditioning, the Western matrix, how we should be, how we should behave. But really, guys, really everyone listening to this, it's the cheesiest possible reductum that you can imagine. It really is love, care, joy, happiness, satisfaction, pursuing your dreams. And although 50% of reality is that and 50% is darkness, we still seek forward and endeavor to evolve and love each other. So how does spirit communicate with us? Well, that is the intelligence that we have inside. Do that fearlessly, even though sometimes it doesn't make sense. And of course it doesn't make sense. Think of 95% of the population and the 5% of the population that tries to change the world. 95% of the population is trying to fight the crazy ideas of the people at the top, trying to innovate and break down societal structures so that they can evolve our species. And we owe it to them. So just in your own life, recognize the fact that once you start establishing yourself in your intuition, your authentic personality, you're going to deviate from 95% of people. So we have to protect our beliefs. We have to reinforce them through social conversation with people who are like-minded and open. We have to be willing to encounter skepticism, to refine our solidity within the concepts that have provided us with liberty. So how does spirit communicate with us? Well, it gives us challenges so that we can develop the qualities that we're praying for, right? To develop love, spirit, source, the world will give you troubled people to help, right? This is a quote that I've seen, and I love it so much because it immediately validates your personal endeavor, no matter what kind of human being you are, no matter what status you believe that you have. It immediately validates your endeavor to care for another and the confidence within your own self and prioritizing yourself. So synchronicities. I guess I'll just like throw in sprinkle some crazy stuff out there. Yeah, synchronicities. It's like I love 111222. Looking at the clock, yeah, super jamming on that. And I believe that is a sign. Uh, but I also believe that we can't give it too much weight, because if we give any of these concepts too much weight, we're putting our happiness in things that we can't exactly control. We're putting our happiness in. We're relying on external circumstances to happen to us, to validate our experience. But what spirit wants us to know, what God or source or the grand intelligence that's born our entire existence, or that is existence, that is infinity, that is nothing and everything at the same time, what it wants us to know and encourages us to solidify is our own personal evolution, our own decisions, our own subjective awareness of these spiritual truths, and not the religious adherence to any dogma, whether that's modern science or ancient wisdom. So it's your anecdotal experience in equality. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Your anecdotal experience is as equal in value as ancient wisdom and modern science put together, because you're, at the end of the day, is it making you happy? Right. Okay. Right. So your subjective experiences matter almost more than any science that we can have. So spirit wants you to know, brothers and sisters, that you have the power. You need to infuse it. And that the ego is this relentless menace that we must defeat through repetition, because molecular biology and ancient wisdom says that through repetition we will master. And the master has failed more times than the student has even tried. So, okay, that's that on spirit. So let's talk about gratitude, and then I'll close myself out. I don't want to eat the air, take too much of your guys' time. So I'm grateful for the human freaking beings that are here right now, trying to do their best self, trying to be their best self every single day, relentlessly, even despite the mass oppression of our society, the mass oppression of the Western matrix, which is unjust. It is unjust. You don't deserve a lot of the shit that has happened to you that's formed this depressive identity. It's not who you are. It's not who you deserve to be. You didn't deserve it. But it's an unfortunate fact of our reality that we're all co-creating this experience, even the people who we perceive as nasty or a little bit less smart or loving than us, which is just a perception, not a permanent tag for that person, just a perception. And all we can ever do is control what we can control, which is our internal demeanor, which radiates outwards from us in every conversation, every community that we have, and has more of an effect on reality than trying to constrain your identity and your behaviors and actions to the acceptance of the majority of the world. So I believe in you wholeheartedly. And you know what? How does spirit communicate with us? Well, it communicates with us through each and every single one of your voices and our voices here. So I love every single one of you. You are doing an admirable, honorable deed by even attempting to be a better person. Okay, so therefore you can't judge yourself, because half of the population isn't trying to do that. Welcome to the bigs. You're awesome. Give yourself a freaking break. Okay, I love you. And Brendon, thank you for providing this platform for these amazing individuals to come together. You're an awesome mofo. All right, Campton out. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Campton. Thank you again for bringing your passion and your fire, and yeah, dude, absolutely. Thank you for being an awesome mofo as well. No, that's true that, man. So thank you everyone again for being a part of today's discussion. Last call just on any closing thoughts and gratitude real quick, and then we'll be done for today. Jessica, I'll pass it over to you. Go right ahead.
Campton, can you come like way earlier next time, because it was just awesome, and I feel like you're the type of person I actually like want to have a huge conversation with, because I want to argue with like some of the stuff you said, not because I disagree with you, but because I agree with you, and I know like your reflection will just help me think and expand. But yeah, everyone, thank you so much for being here today, because this has all, like, again, all the reflections you've shown back at me allow me to go and think and know myself better, and that's where I'm coming back to, is just knowing myself allows me then to come in and help, like you said, serve the greater good. So thank you, Brendon, for hosting.
I would love to have a conversation with you as well, Mind Cave. We have to at some point. You can DM me anytime.
Sounds good.
There we go. Many more conversations we had, so beautiful. And Beliz, if you want to share any closing gratitude, feel free to unmute your microphone now, and we'll get close to wrapping it up. Yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you guys for being here and making this trusting environment.
Beautiful. Thank you. Awesome. Well, again, this is one of those topics that it just keeps spiraling out. So I invite everybody here to continue this discussion. Ask your friends. Be like, hey, how does spirit communicate with us? What do you think? And again, to be able to deepen the question personally, how does spirit communicate with you? How do you choose to communicate with spirit? And how in doing so can it, again, be able to support, enrich, and nurture you on your journey as well? So yeah, absolutely. I think we're doing a great job here of being spirit communicating to itself, and at the end of the day, just being able to support and nurture and inspire and motivate and hold space and heal and grow and learn and expand. That's it, man. That's the journey. So whether it's coming through a license plate, or whether it's coming through the words of a friend, or whether you're listening to this podcast in the future, again, it's up to you to be able to choose what you do with this message. So the universe is constantly communicating to you. How do you choose to be able to hold that message, and how can you use it in an empowering way to support you on your journey, and continuing to become better conduits for the universe to be able to speak and act through. And yeah, I think we're all doing a bang up job. So I appreciate every single person being here. For those of you listening to this in the future, we'll wrap things up here with just some closing invitations. Again, for any of you who haven't already yet, be sure to connect to our Discord server if you would like to be able to join in for future conscious paradigm shift central circle discussions, as well as other conscious events hosted by fellow members within the community, as well as their content. And again, to be able to have your own content and events featured within the community as well, if you would like to be able to join as a member through our Patreon. And all the links for that are in the info for this video. And for some of you, I look forward to being able to have you for our paradigm shift, for our Druid and Mystic Dream Circle discussion, which again is coming up October 24th. And if you missed this one, again, be sure to join the Patreon in the future, and you'll be able to join in for those. And that's again kind of like a continuation of this theme of communicating with spirit. And yeah, all the links that you need for all the people that have spoken today are linked into the info of this video on YouTube. So if you're on Spotify, feel free to jump over there. Please share this broadcast with your friends. If you guys can do me a favor, even if you're just tuned in on YouTube, feel free to screenshot this, even live or afterwards, and then just maybe tag me in an Instagram story, and I'd love to be able to give you a shout out there. And that's a great way to be able to help support these broadcasts and invite more people to be able to join in. So we have new topics every week, and we'll be back here again Wednesday at 4 p.m. EDT. Lots of other conscious community events happening in the community, so keep an eye open for that through the Discord. And yeah, thank you again, everyone, so much for being a part of today's Paradigm Shift Circle. My name is Brendon, Mystic Spider-Man, Skull Babylon, Wolf Shield, and it's been an honor and a joy as always. So for everybody here in the Discord, please feel free to gently unmute your microphones as we say farewell, and until next time, to all the fellow amazing light guardians and shifters who have tuned in today. So until next time, everybody, wave to the camera. We love you guys. We love you. Thank you, everybody. We love you. Feel free to unmute yourself and say bye. Bye. We love you guys. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you later. Much love.